Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into something I think a lot of people are going to find super relevant, and that's marriage, or more specifically, the stuff nobody really tells you about before and after you say, I do.
The good stuff and the bad stuff, right?
Exactly. I mean, we all want that happily ever after, but let's be real for a second. Marriage takes work.
It does.
So for this deep dive, we're looking at before and after saying I do. It's this online course by Pastor Peter Kamani. We've got all the course materials and even this really interesting promo text that features a real couple, Lydia and James. They're sharing some of their own struggles, like, money disagreements, communication breakdowns, feeling disconnected, the classic year one
Oh,
hurdles.
yeah, the honeymoon phase is over and reality sets in.
Right. So that's what we're going to dig into today. Can this course actually help couples avoid those pitfalls and build like a rock-solid foundation?
It's a great question, and I think what's fascinating about Pastor Kamani's approach is that he really frames premarital counseling as like preventative care for your relationship.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it's not about waiting for problems to erupt. It's about proactively addressing those potential pressure points before you even walk down the aisle.
And the promo text really does highlight just how common those pressure points are. I mean, Lydia and James are asking those questions like, should we merge our finances?
Right.
Why doesn't he ever seem to get what I'm saying?
Right. Those are like universal struggles.
Total relatable stuff.
Absolutely. And, while those issues might seem surface level, Pastor Kimani really dives deeper in the course materials. He shows how communication breakdowns, they often stem from different love languages. It's a concept he explains in detail, and he actually gives couples specific tools like something called the mirroring method.
Oh, tell me more about this mirroring method.
It's all about active listening and empathy. So, for example, let's say Lydia is expressing frustration about James's spending habits, right?
Happens in the best of couples.
Right. So instead of getting defensive, James uses the mirroring method to say something like, okay, so what you're saying is you feel stressed when I make big purchases without discussing it with you first. Is that right?
That's huge.
Right.
Because it shows Lydia that he's actually trying to understand her perspective.
Exactly. It takes the heat out of the conversation. It shifts the focus to really understanding each other.
Now, another big area Lydia and James are struggling with, and something that keeps popping up in the promo materials, is finances.
Oh, yeah. Financial stress is a major relationship killer. But again, Pastor Kimani emphasizes it's rarely about the money itself. It's about differing values and money habits that we've often picked up way before we even meet our partner. So in the course, he has this really helpful money history exercise. It guides couples through exploring their individual financial backgrounds, like where they learned about money, what their families were like, and it helps them identify potential areas of conflict.
And so like unearthing those hidden money scripts that we're all carrying around.
Pers-
I'm seeing a real pattern here of addressing potential problems before they blow up. And the course, it also talks about setting boundaries with family and friends, which is something the promo text mentions as a major sticking point for Lydia and James.
That's so important. In any relationship, but especially in marriage, Pastor Kamani stresses that the marital relationship needs to be the primary bond.
I see what you mean. Not in an isolating way, but
Right, not cutting people off, but
like you're a team,
exactly. You present a united front.
Yeah.
So he offers practical advice and even script suggestions for navigating those tricky conversations, like how to politely decline a family request that encroaches on a couple time.
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes just having the right words can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing that really stood out to me, both in the course materials and the promo text, is the emphasis on a God-centered approach to marriage. Can you elaborate on what exactly that means in this context?
Sure. So Pastor Kimani, as you might expect, believes that faith provides a really strong foundation for marriage. So he defines a God-centered marriage as one where partners prioritize their spiritual connection and they seek guidance from their shared faith when they're navigating challenges. And so you'll see biblical principles and teachings woven throughout the course.
Which makes sense, given it isn't by a pastor. But I do wonder, could that potentially make the course feel less inclusive to couples who come from different backgrounds or, maybe don't share those same beliefs?
Yeah, that's a really valid point. It's definitely something for couples to consider. Does this approach really align with our values and beliefs? Now, even though the course draws heavily on faith-based principles, the underlying themes of communication, understanding, compromise, those are applicable to any relationship.
For sure. It's all about finding the right fit. Now, the promo text also mentioned something that I thought was interesting, limited slots for the course. It kind of creates this sense of exclusivity and maybe even urgency.
It's a smart marketing tactic for sure. It highlights the popularity of the course and maybe suggests that there will be more personalized attention because the groups are smaller.
It definitely got my attention. And speaking of things that got my attention, let's not forget those free bonuses. The marriage readiness checklist and the budgeting guide.
Those are some great tools that really any couple could benefit from, whether they enroll in the full course or not.
Yeah.
It shows that Pastor Kimoni is committed to providing practical resources.
So to wrap things up, before and after saying I do, seems to offer a really comprehensive toolkit for couples who want to build a strong and lasting relationship. What really stood out to me was that focus on proactive communication, addressing potential issues before they become huge problems.
I agree, and I think that's something that any couple, regardless of their background or beliefs, could benefit from.
Totally. And while that faith-based approach might be what draws some couples in, it's important for each couple to really ask themselves, does this approach really align with our vision for our relationship?
Because at the end of the day, the most successful relationships are built on shared values, open communication, and that willingness to grow together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, here's something I want you to think about as you continue on your own, deep dive into relationships.
Yeah.
How can understanding your individual attachment styles and past experiences help you build healthier and more fulfilling partnerships? It's a fascinating question to explore. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into before and after saying I do.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.